Welcome back to this evening update. We're going to walk you through the weather pattern as we head into late February and early March, a period that could bring active weather in the form of winter storms with heavy snow and ice, as well as the potential for heavy rain and even severe weather as we enter the new month of March. Temperature outlook. Let's look at our temperature anomalies this evening. Although the screen shows a lot of blue and purple, indicating below normal temperatures, we are beginning to see some improvement. Just a couple of nights ago on Wednesday evening, we observed anomalies that were 40 to 50 degrees below normal. This evening, they're only 30 degrees below normal, still cold, but not nearly as severe. Now let's review our high temperatures. This Friday afternoon on February 21st, much of the central United States reached the teens and 20s, a nice warm-up compared to recent afternoons. Overnight tonight, as you wake up on Saturday morning at 6 a.m., temperatures will drop. Many locations will register in the single digits, teens, and 20s. It will be another cold morning, but not as extreme as just a few nights ago. Notice the wind chills. They will dip below zero across a large portion of the Midwest, but only by a few degrees, although there are no double-digit drops indicated on the maps if you live in Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Iowa, much of Minnesota, parts of Nebraska, especially eastern Nebraska, northeast Kansas, northern Missouri, or even in the Ohio Valley, including Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Expect to wake up with temperatures ranging from 0 to as low as 10 degrees at the coldest points of the night. Looking at the west, earlier this afternoon, we recorded highs in the 20s and 30s, with far southern California and southern Arizona even reaching the 70s and a few into the 80s. However, further north, the temperatures drop considerably. As you wake up Saturday morning, you'll find that the coldest air is settling over the higher elevations of the Rockies, while other areas in the west will see temperatures in the 20s, 30s, and even some 40s. Across the east, this afternoon's high temperatures were in the teens and 20s, even into the northeast, a marked warm-up compared to a couple of days ago. Tomorrow morning, as we head into Saturday, many areas will see lows in the single digits and teens. While most areas will remain above zero tonight, regions with a denser snowpack, such as upstate New York, parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, could remain near zero or even a few degrees below. In these locations, wind chills may struggle to reach 10 degrees below zero and could drop to 15 to 20 degrees below zero. Be sure to cover any exposed skin if you're headed outdoors in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York, or even parts of Massachusetts tomorrow morning. Weekend forecast. For the weekend, temperature anomalies will continue to differ regionally. In the eastern U.S., we are leaning below normal, while in the west, especially across western Canada extending to Alaska, temperatures will be above normal on both Saturday, February 22nd and Sunday, February 23rd. Starting this evening, not much is happening across the lower 48 states. There will be a bit of drizzle and light shower activity across the Rio Grande and south central Texas. Additionally, a storm system is bringing heavier rains to western Washington state, where our friends in Seattle are already seeing some precipitation. Higher elevation areas in northern Washington and much of British Columbia, Canada, will experience some snow. As Saturday progresses, around midday, the moisture will still be present in Seattle and surrounding areas, extending up into British Columbia. Meanwhile, coastal Texas, around Corpus Christi, and possibly as far north and east as Houston and Galveston, may see some drizzle and rain showers, though this is not expected to be a major concern. Moving into Saturday evening, much of this precipitation will continue to move northward, affecting areas around Houston, possibly as far north as Waco and Tyler, Texas, and even into Lake Charles, with lighter showers and perhaps a few rumbles of thunder. Then on Sunday morning, more widespread rains are expected, continuing overnight Saturday across the Pacific Northwest. This system will extend further south into Oregon, impacting Portland, Eugene, and Medford, and as far south as Northern California. As the moisture gradually moves eastward into Idaho and western Montana, some mixing with snow in the higher elevations is anticipated throughout Sunday. Regarding severe weather, no significant threats are expected today, which is good news heading into the weekend. On Saturday, February 22nd, there is a general thunderstorm risk across southeast Texas, Louisiana, and far southwest Mississippi, indicated in light green on the map. These will be your typical garden variety storms with heavy rain and, at worst, some pea-sized hail. As the threat area contracts, mainly to the southern parishes of Louisiana, the risk for non-severe thunderstorms will diminish on Sunday, February 23rd. According to the rainfall map, most areas will remain dry this weekend, with the most notable precipitation occurring in the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon, and Northwest California. Over here, extending into Idaho, parts of Montana, and western Wyoming, many areas are expected to receive at least a couple of inches of rain. In particular, from Seattle southward to Portland, Eugene, and Medford, rainfall may be heavy at times. Additionally, areas from Houston and Galveston toward Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans could pick up an inch to possibly 2 inches of rain throughout the weekend. Much of the cold air will be bottled up to the north in Canada, so the heaviest snows will occur across the higher elevations of the naturally colder Pacific Northwest. Some areas could see as much as 60 to 70 inches of snow. Meanwhile, the Great Lakes region and interior parts of the Northeast, especially upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and Maine, could accumulate between 1 and 1.5 inches of snow over the weekend, which isn't too significant. Huge pattern shift next week, the last week of February, from Monday, February 24th through Friday, February 28th. The polar vortex will be parked where it belongs in northern Canada and the Arctic. It will still bring a small lobe of colder air into the eastern United States, but notice the ridge across the west, which extends into western Canada, including British Columbia, Alberta, and even Yukon and the Northwest Territories. That ridge will promote warmer temperatures. The temperature map for this 5-day period shows plenty of above normal readings in oranges and reds from Alaska through much of Canada, especially Western Canada, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and British Columbia, and extending east into Manitoba and Ontario, as well as across much of the western third of the United States. However, the eastern third, although it shows some orange, is expected to be closer to normal, if not below normal. This is something to keep an eye on as we move into that time frame. Additionally, the trend will be drier if you live along the Gulf Coast in the southeast or as far north as the Ohio River. Precipitation will likely remain below normal, not meaning there will be no precipitation, just significantly less than usual. Over the top of that ridge in British Columbia, these areas could see heavy snowfall at higher elevations along the western shoreline of Canada, and potentially heavier snowfall inland as well, which could extend into the Great Lakes region and the northeast of the United States. Weather pattern for next week: on Monday, February 24th, a clipper system will bring light snow to the upper Great Lakes, potentially generating rain or snow showers in the upper peninsula of Michigan, lower Michigan, and parts of Ontario and Quebec, mostly as snow. The Pacific Northwest will experience more rain. Additionally, southern Florida, from Miami and Fort Lauderdale to Tampa Bay, Naples, Fort Myers, and Key West, is expected to see heavier rainfall to start the week, making Monday a dreary day. By Tuesday, that system moves offshore. However, an active conveyor belt of storm systems will continue to ride over the ridge. The desert Southwest and the southern New West near the Gulf Coast will remain relatively dry. Then another clipper system may drop about an inch of snow by midweek, followed shortly by yet another that could affect areas in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, extending into the Northeast by next weekend. In short, expect a lot of active weather farther to the north. Looking at precipitation from Monday, February 24th through Friday, February 28th, much of it is concentrated in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in Washington State and Oregon from Seattle to Portland, as well as across the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. In the upper Midwest, from northern Minnesota into northern Wisconsin, the upper peninsula of Michigan, and northern and lower Michigan, and interior parts of the Northeast, such as northern Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, and possibly northern Pennsylvania, snowfall accumulations of 1 to 3 inches are expected. The bulk of the snowfall, however, will occur in Canada, where significant accumulations are already being observed across portions of the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and northern Alberta and Saskatchewan, extending south into the provinces of Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. Early winter storms in March. Although March isn't far away, we can discuss the early pattern with some caution. The upper level pattern shows blue regions, meaning temperatures will trend below normal during the first 7 to 8 days of March. Across the west, however, a split pattern is emerging, possibly warmer or near normal conditions, as confirmed by the temperature anomaly map for the first week of March. The warmest areas will be in Alaska and northwest Canada, including Yukon and the Northwest Territories, extending into parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. In contrast, the eastern United States is trending below normal due to a return of colder air, while much of the West remains near normal to slightly below normal. This doesn't signal a major Arctic blast, just somewhat colder temperatures than usual. Active weather is likely to persist into early March, which could bring heavier rainfall and precipitation to the West Coast. Downstream, larger storm systems are possible in the central and eastern U.S. Between March 1st and March 8th, we might see heavy rain events along with the potential for isolated severe weather, particularly near the Gulf Coast and Dixie Alley, and possibly extending as far north as the Mid-Atlantic region. Stay safe, everyone. I'll be back with another update tomorrow. We could see another major snowstorm in early March, so stay tuned.